Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about matching the right yarn with the right hooks. Now it might not seem like it's that big a deal. I mean, you should be able to just pick up a hook, pick up some yarn and start crocheting, right? Well, it's not really that simple. And here's an example. I'm going to show you some swatches, okay? Here's swatch number 1. Okay. Swatch number 2, which I'm going to show you, is bigger than swatch number 1. See? Okay. Swatch number 3 is bigger than swatch number 2. Actually, I kind of skipped these. But anyway, this swatch is slightly smaller than this one because technically this one should have been number 4. This one should have been number 3. So number 3 and number 4, as you can see, are different sizes. And now number 4 compared to number 5. Definitely a size difference there. Okay, so as you can see, all 5 of these swatches are different sizes. But believe it or not, all 5 of these, all 5, see right here, I chained 10 and did 3 rows of half double crochet. All of these. See? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, this is a little hard to see. 2 and 3. Can you see? And finally, 1, 2, 3. Chain 10, 3 rows of half double crochet. But as you can see, there's a big difference in size between, well, all of them, but here's number 1 and here's number 5. So look at that. So, you know, this is why it's important to match your yarn with your hook, because if you don't, then your stitches are not going to turn out. Your gauge is going to be wrong. Whatever it is you're making is going to come out completely wrong. So I figured that I would just spend some time today and show you how to match the proper hook with the yarn you want to use. And I'm going to use the yarns that I use like almost on a daily basis. And they're like my favorites, so we'll talk about it a little bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with the little guy. The one that this came from. And this is actually a nylon macrame thread. And I believe it's size 18. It's called number 18. And it's going to, as you can probably guess, it's going to call for a smaller hook. Now, most of these threads don't have a hook size listed on their packaging. So, with a little bit of playing around and fiddling around with my smaller hooks, I concluded that a 3 to a 3.5, which is what this is. You can't really see my things anymore. I love these hooks, but the writing on them is just bad. To the point where I realized that it was going to rub off, so I took a picture of all the hooks so that now if I need to pick up a hook, I'm not sure which is which, I can pull up the picture and see which hook is what size. But anyway, a size 3 or 3.5. Now, I crochet tight, so I went with a 3.5. But if you have regular tension with crocheting, you go for 3. So 3 to 3.5 for nylon threads like that. And and that thread is what I use to make my coin purses and other purses and like other kinds of accessories. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so the next thread up is probably one of my favorite yarns. I use this a lot, and it's Line Brand's 24/7 cotton. Yeah, I use this for so many things. I I I have a lot of this, and pretty much every color they make. Um, my current work in progress with it, because a lot of what I had been using it for, I've either sold or it's in use and not picture worthy. But this is my current work in progress. This is going to be a bag of some sort. I'm not quite sure of what sort, but of some sort. And basically, I was really using this as a prototype because I was practicing doing linings. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out. But just look at the stitching that this yarn creates. I mean, just a simple stitch, but it's very the texture and of the stitches. It just I love it. Anyway, this is the Line brand, and it typically calls for a 4 hook, right? Yes, it calls for a 4mm hook. Focus, camera. So again, I have a tight tension, so I bump up to a 4.5. But again, if you have normal tension, do a 4, or maybe you might need a 5. But for the most part, a 4, or you might need a 3.5. But it calls for 4. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Next yarn is pretty much like your average worsted weight yarn that we pretty much get everywhere. But this is the Loops and Threads Impeccable. And I really like this. This is a good, for lack of way of describing it, a good worker yarn. Get it at Michael's. It's in all kinds of colors. And it's just like, it's a good, it's useful for pretty much everything. Blankets, sweaters, other clothing, you name it. And it calls for a 5mm hook, which, okay, all crocheters have their favorite hook sizes. And mine is, well, again, tight tension, a 5.5. And yeah, I see, look, I've used this so much you can't even see the measurement anymore. But I've used it so much, I just know what it is. But yeah, this is a 5.5. But it calls for a 5, 5.5, maybe a 4.5 if you have a loose tension. But yes. And I use that yarn to, well, I don't have any like technical work in progress with that yarn, but this is a swatch that I was making because it's for an Afghan that I'm actually working on. And this color, let me flip this over. This color, and this color are all the Impeccable yarn. So you can really see how, especially these two together, how they just like, they're almost seamless. You can't see through them or anything. It's a good yarn. I like it. Highly suggest it. What do you think of this pattern, by the way? I have a love-hate relationship with it. Plus, ignore the actual. This is literally a swatch for me to learn how to do this pattern. So, it's looking kind of rough, but as a practice swatch, yeah, it's okay. And the actual Afghan is turning out much better. But we'll get to that in a second. So I told you the hook size for that, right? Yeah, 5.5. My favorite. Okay. On to the next yarn. And my love for this yarn really can't be described. Anyway, it's Walmart's brand of Overjoyed yarn, or at least I got it at Walmart. I think it's a Walmart brand. Anyway, the best way to describe this, and this will either sell it for you or turn you off completely, because that's how this works. It's a thicker version of Karen Simply Soft. Now, people either love or hate Karen Simply Soft. Um, I personally love it, which is probably why I like this so much, because it is literally just a thicker version of it. It's as soft as Karen. It's got the same shimmer as Karen. It has the same twist as Karen, which basically is what people either love or hate about it, because it if you're not careful, you can snag it. It does split, but if you're using the right hook, and in this case, that calls for a 6, which means, again, one more time for people in the back, tight tension, my 6.5 hook. So if you use the right hook with it, you get less splitting and less problem with it. And it's a very smooth yarn, and a lot of people don't like it because of that, because they think it's slippery. But personally, to me, like I said, with the right hook, it crochets like butter. I mean, I love it. And the project I'm working on with that is from that swatch that I showed you before, is the Afghan that I'm now working on. Early stages, very, very early stages. But this is what the Afghan that I'm working on is starting to look like. Pretty. And I'm not quite sure, you can see how, like, you know, if you look at it, it's really kind of fuzzy. It's really soft. So I'm like, I don't think it's going to, I'm going to have a problem with piling. But it's probably going to get kind of fuzzy and might get, you know, like when yarns get, they kind of mutate when they get fuzzy. That might be an issue. But I'm making this Afghan for me, so if that is the case, I'll know not to use it for someone else's, and it'll just be mine, and I really won't care. So that's my size 6 hook yarn. And then we move to the bulky yarn, and yeah, this is probably, I don't know, this is also one of my faves. Bernat Maker Home Deck. I have made so much stuff with Home Deck, it's not even funny. I love this yarn. It's ridiculously easy to work with. It doesn't split. I have yet to make a pattern with it, provided I was using the right hook, that didn't turn out. And my last project with it, not with that particular, but with a different color, was this bag. And that is awesome. You know, it works up quick. I mean, really quick. And like, it's sturdy. You know, you use this for the marketplace. Like, you put a liner in it and carry it as a regular purse. I mean, there's you do a lot with it. But I normally make a lot of bags, like grocery bags and market bags and stuff like that. Now, it's a bulky, and it calls for a size 8 hook. So that's when I pull out this one. She's a sturdy gal. She's an 8. She's thick. Got a good grip on her. You know, this is for my bulky. So those are the hooks that I use with the yarns that I use on a daily basis. And you still might be thinking, well, what does it really matter? And it actually does, because could you imagine trying to crochet with this thread with this hook? Just think about that for a minute. I'm not going to attempt it, because I have a feeling it will just end up with me wanting to pull out my hair. But surely you could imagine what a nightmare that would be. So if you want to be a little more realistic about it, let's say you had this yarn, and you wanted to use, which calls for a 4-inch hook, or 4.5 in my case, and you pulled out the 6 or the 6.5 in my case. Now, you can crochet with it. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't crochet with this yarn with this hook, as I'll show you here in a second. I mean, there's nothing that's saying that you can't. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, obviously I just chained 10. That was no problem. Chain 2 more. Yarn over. Insert the hook in the third from the end. I'm doing a half double crochet. Pull through all 3 loops. So there's nothing that says you can't do it. Obviously the hook will go through the yarn. You can follow the steps for a half double crochet or a double crochet or a single crochet, what have you. You'll be able to do it. However, when you're crocheting things, sometimes your gauge is important. And sometimes you need to have so many steps per many stitches per inch in order for the pattern to work. If you don't match the yarn to the proper hook to get that gauge, then whatever it is you're making isn't going to turn out right. Now, it might not be as much of a problem if you're, say, crocheting a blanket or like a placemat or something where like the dimensions aren't that necessary. I mean, a rectangle is a rectangle, a square is a square. However, if you're making, like, say, a sweater or some socks or another piece of clothing, you need for those measurements to be correct. Otherwise, you're going to have, like, a sweater with the sleeves that are longer than the actual sweater. And that really would kind of defeat the purpose. So, okay, this is my gauge of this, which calls for 4 crocheted, half double crocheted with a size 6.5mm hook. Okay, I mean, it doesn't look bad. There's definitely still some definition of the pattern, but size-wise, it's bigger. And you might not think that 1/4 inch makes a difference, but if every inch that you're making is a 1/4 inch larger than it's supposed to be, that's going to throw things off. So you want to avoid that. Now, going the other way, taking a bulk yarn and crocheting, I have a mess here. Hang on, I got it from the end. Where'd it go? And taking a bulk yarn and crocheting with a hook smaller than you're supposed to crochet with also creates a problem. So let's say you want to use the home deck, which I told you calls for an 8, and let's say you use we'll go with the 4.5. No, wait, that's not 4.5. Here's 4.5. Again, you can do it. I mean, I could chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 more. Loop round over. Third from the hook. But this is going to be mighty, mighty tight. So you're gonna have the opposite problem with the swatch I did just before this. It is going to make things bigger than they're supposed to be. This is going to make them smaller, and that's just and that's just an issue too, especially if you're crocheting a piece of clothing and you're trying to keep a certain size. So you kind of need to match the hook with the yarn that will give you the gauge you need. And like I said, your tension's a big deal too, because if you're like me and you tend to crochet tight, you're going to have to come up a hook size or two to accommodate that. Otherwise, you know, your pattern will be off too. So you just need to pick the hook that'll give you the right gauge. Most of the time, it's the same as a recommendation, but or maybe you're like me and you crochet too tight, and you have to go up a hook size, no, a half hook size or so. Now, this was chained with, look at that, it's curling automatically because the hook was too small for the actual yarn. And if you compare it to size-wise, it's much smaller. Well, I guess it's the same as, it's like a quarter of an inch off too. But you can see how that would be a problem if you're making a piece of clothing. Plus the whole curling thing. Now, I guess if you want a cheap and easy way to create a rounded piece for something, there's your solution. But if you're going to make clothing and you do this, it's going to be much smaller than much smaller than what it's supposed to be. So that's my video. I just wanted to show you the importance of matching the right hook with the right yarn. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and share it and like, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, feel free to go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks. Bye.